friends, welcome back to my channel. We're here today with a Friday Reads update. I have a lot of bookish things to share with you, a lot of really exciting things. Books that I have received, books that I have read, books that I'm just really excited about for one reason or another. So let's start with the books that I have received. It is February, so we are celebrating Black history and Black culture here on the channel. I'm not reading exclusively books by Black authors just because I have a lot of other books that I need to read as well. But I am celebrating Black authors. So, very excited to have received a copy of the 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah Jones. And I'm excited. I've heard a lot about this book. I have heard controversy about this book because, there are people who don't want the 1619 Project to be known. So that has made me want to read this book even more. I probably won't pick it up in February just because it's a little weighty. We're looking at 400 plus pages. And my TBR is already extensive, but I'm not limiting my reading of Black authors to February, and I hope you won't either. So we'll be coming back to read that sometime soon. And I may be the only person on the planet who hasn't yet read Becoming, but I just got a copy. So I'm going to be reading Michelle Obama's memoir at some point. Again, probably not in February, but I do want to thank Penguin Random House for sending me free copies, complimentary copies of these two books. So excited to receive them, and I'm going to be talking about them when I read them. So aside from that, I have been reading a lot of really great things. And I'll start with books that I have finished. Books by Black authors that I have finished, which there's only one of those. There's only one of those this week. But watch my Friday Reads from last week if you want to hear about other books that I have read by Black authors this month. And of course, at the end of the month, I'll give a full wrap up. But I read a book this past week that I've been hearing about this author for a while now, and I was just slacking on picking up her work. I even follow her on Instagram. Why am I being cryptic again, right? Bernice L Mcfadden. She has a lot of novels, and the people who have read them usually love them. So why has it taken me so long to pick up her books? I even have a copy of one of her novels downloaded on my Kindle, and I just hadn't opened it. But I read the book of Harlan by Bernice L Mcfadden this past week, and I loved it. 5 stars. It is a book about a man named Harlan, and we first meet his family, his mother and his mother's best friend when they're children in Macon, Georgia, and how his mother and his father meet, and a little bit of their courtship and how they start their lives and the life in which they have a son and are not even sure that they can take care of him, so they leave him for the mother's family to take care of. And so we learn about family and about the family history and about the dynamics of his family and the conditions under which he is raised and grows up to mature into a young man, a kind of, slightly irresponsible young man because he is kind of cosseted. But he's a musician, and the love of music that runs through his veins and the veins of his family and his friends. There's a lot that happens to this character, but man, the writing in this book is just so overwhelmingly good. Like Bernice L Mcfadden takes historical facts and real historical people, real people, and writes them into her narrative and gives them overlapping stories with her characters. And so she delves into so many social issues at the time and shows us real and imagined people. And this book is fantastic. It is a little bit of autofiction, but not necessarily her autobiography. She's writing about a real life person in her life. I think Harlan is a male relative. I feel like he was her grandfather. I don't remember. But Harlan is a real life person. And I don't know if all the things that happens to Harlan in the novel happen to this real person. But her writing is just what makes this book. Like, it is completely plot driven. And the chapters are really short. And so we move from following Harlan to following some of the people's lives with whom his intersect. Is that how you'd say that? So we follow them a little bit and then we come back to him. But, but the writing is just so engaging. I love this book. Love this book. So if you're still looking for a recommendation for Black History Month, I read a free copy of the Book of Harlan by Bernice L Mcfadden from the New York Public Library because I get e-copies, e-downloads from them. But this is a book I want to own because I have so many highlights in that I'm going to need a place to write them down, and my reading journal just won't be enough. So I'm going to need a physical copy. So I want to get all of Bernice L Mcfadden's books now and read them and have her sign them because, yeah, loved that book. So that was the first fantastic read of the week. I also read... What else did I finish this week? I read Alice Adventures in Wonderland by Louise Carroll. I read that for free as well on the internet, Project Gutenberg. Maybe because I'm not a child, I wasn't as blown away by the fantasy, but I appreciated the book because there are two layers on which the story of Alice Adventures takes place. So we're learning about this girl who jumps down a rabbit hole to follow a rabbit and she goes into this world that is fantastic. Alice goes into this place where she's clearly not supposed to be, and she has to adjust herself in order to fit in, literally and figuratively. So she finds when she gets into the rabbit hole that she's too big for this space, and so there are things that she can take to either shrink or grow as she needs to. And there's this layer of, if we read this book on the surface, what it means, her following these animals and how they speak and what they say and the sarcasm and the parody. It's fun and it's engaging for a younger reader, but there's also this subtext, the parable meanings, like why do you have to change yourself when you go into places where you clearly don't belong? What you get out of changing yourself and whether that makes you more or less accepted by others, and also how it changes how you feel or how you view yourself. And I love that there are morals in the story, like there are different people that she talks to and she has different kinds of conversations with them, and she learns some things about herself. I hope I'm not spoiling this for you. This book was written in 1865, and it makes me think, just because I'm reading it in Black History Month, makes me think about what else was happening in the world in 1865. People who had been enslaved were being emancipated, and here we are reading about Alice Adventures in Wonderland. So the irony of that was not lost on me when I saw the date of the original publication, but I read it this month, and so there's that. Also read Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, and I also really enjoyed that. This is set in Ireland. We're following three characters who have known each other for some time, living in Dublin when one of them moves to the countryside and meets someone else. So now we're following four characters, three of whom knew each other from before, and one who is coming in and kind of upsetting the apple cart just with his really straightforward way of interacting with people, saying what he thinks, and forcing other people to confront some truths. A big part of the novel is epistolary because we have exchanges between these two women happening in long, really rambling emails where they're trying to discuss the meaning of life, and they're both questioning religion and talking about it with each other because their understanding or their acceptance of Christianity is a little uneven. And so they're kind of working through that. They're talking about bigger picture things like climate change and the apocalypse and whether or not civilization as we know it can continue, and things that people in their 30s talk about, I suppose. And all of a sudden one of the women meets this other man, and he just kind of forces her to reckon with herself. But when he meets the other two friends, he also forces their whole relationships to just kind of come to a climax. And I love it. I love that we start with this man who I'm not sure that I really take to, and that over the course of the novel, he moves from being villain to being protagonist, and I love it because I love when someone kind of comes from far left or far right and just like kind of steals your heart. So love that book. I love Sally Rooney's almost navel gazing in this book, because she gives us an opportunity to kind of think about these subjects that the characters are thinking about, but almost like she's giving us a place to identify with these characters if we do, and a place to maybe go through some of those questions ourselves as the characters seek clarity or seek understanding. So she takes these really trivial details and makes them the narrative, forces you to kind of slow down and become intimate with the atmosphere, which I guess is how we actually live in the world. So I wasn't a fan of Sally Rooney's book, Normal People. No. But this one, this one really struck me. I really, really enjoyed it. So again, if you're looking for a reason to pick up Sally Rooney's book, maybe you want to check this one out. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a book for everyone. I've read reviews on Goodreads where people say they DNF'd. I never at any point felt like putting it down. That's the thing. There have been books that I have struggled through, and at the end I was like, what did I read? But this one, I never at any point felt like I wanted to quit. Never wanted to not know how this story went. So there's that. So those are books that I have finished this week. I also made sterling progress on Black Boy by Richard Wright. So yeah, did I mention all of those were electronic versions? Yeah, all of them. So I've been reading a print copy of Richard Wright's Black Boy, and I love this. I'm buddy reading this with Kay, and I'm loving it way more than she is. But I don't know, there's a lot about this book that just like tugs at my heart. We're reading about a boy growing up in the South, growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, and then in Memphis, Tennessee, and talking about a childhood that's rife with struggle, with hunger, with persecution from family members, with lack of understanding, lack of a place of refuge, even though he's living in a household that's supposed to be super religious. There are people here who clearly don't care about him, at least not from his perspective. And, it's hard sometimes when you're reading one person's view to really get a full scope of understanding of what might have been the dynamics in his life. But we're reading about how his parents have split up, and then his mother gets sick, and so they have to relocate to his grandmother's house. And his grandmother, it seems, is very resentful of him. And there's discussion about her being very light-skinned, and the way they call him Black Boy suggests to me that he's not. He's dark. He talks about himself as being dark. And you think sometimes maybe about that colorism that may have existed in his family, but also he is rebellious. He's been rebellious since his earliest recollections in this book, because his first memories that he shares with us are of him doing some things that are very against the status quo in his household. I'm at all points sympathetic towards him because of his ambition. What comes through, even though he is rebellious and he has a rebellious spirit, is that at no point does he see himself as inferior in the way a lot of the people around him seem to regard him. So the members of his family who think that he should be bowing to them because they are in positions of authority above him and he refuses to relent, which is why there are all these struggles, it is because he doesn't see himself as inferior to them. And in the Jim Crow South, in which he's living and operating and trying to get a job, many jobs, it is his ambition and his belief that he's equal. And so a lot of his struggle is just because he does not believe in the status quo, does not align himself with the status quo. And I'm just here for this story of believing in yourself and looking for opportunities to demonstrate that to the rest of the world. So maybe that's why I'm loving this book so much, because I am. I'm still also reading Ashley's Sack, All That She Carried, The Journey of Ashley's Sack, A Black Family Keepsake by Tiya Miles. This one was a gift from Penguin Random House. And I want to I want to do it justice when I review it. So I want to really immerse in the story. So it's taken me a long time. I haven't been reading it consistently, but every time I read it, I'm just so transported in the world that Tiya is bringing us into, which is a discovery of the story that would have led to a woman giving a sack to her child who's about to be sold from her side because of slavery in the 1800s, and how that sack and that story has survived despite the dehumanization that this woman and her daughter have experienced, that their love and their story continues through generations to be being explored now in 2022. Tiya goes through some really in-depth research here, and she's giving us a comparison of life in the South, in South Carolina, where a lot of this is set, versus life in the Caribbean, and comparing slavery in the former colonies in the what's now the United States, versus what was being practiced in places like Barbados, and the journey to try to find these two women and not going where the current takes you, which is, in order to find out about the Black people, that you have to go through the white story and kind of focus on it. Like, she's trying to find these women almost by themselves, which is almost impossible because these women existed as chattel during that time. But man, she is going through the story very scholarly, very meticulously, and I'm not far enough in to tell you that this is the book and that it's brilliant. What I have read so far has been brilliant. I also started the Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and I am loving that. It's a story of a boy whose mother is attacked when he's a child. They're living on an Indian reservation in North Dakota, and it's about him as a child and his father, who's a tribal judge on their reservation, and their process of trying to figure out who committed this crime against the mother and the wife. And later, as he gets older, still kind of following the story. I haven't gotten to the point yet where he's older, but he does kind of flash forward to that part of his life in the earlier narrative. So I'm not far enough in that book yet. I'm probably at about page 70 or so. But I'm loving her writing. I'm loving how this author, this Indigenous woman, brings us into her space, and she forces us to acknowledge a world that is not Anglo-centric, a world that is viewed through different lens, that don't just talk about Indian, they talk about people, because they don't see themselves as other. They're just people. And I love it. There's this stability that you get from reading from the perspective of someone who is from another culture, another tradition, that just makes you reckon with the fact that the world is not just the way you have perceived it. So I'm loving that. And that's why in my reading, I try to read from lots of different perspectives. I don't always succeed, but I try. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. That's what I've been loving. Would love to chat with you in the comments down below. Would love to know what you've been reading, how you're loving it. And yeah, let's chat in the comments. If you're looking for footage of my daughter, she's taking a nap right now, so you'll have to come back for another video to see her. Maybe I'll make a video when she wakes up, and it will just be her chatting with you guys, because that's what she does when she comes on here. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this one. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Links in the description box if you want to go support my channel, Patreon, affiliate links where you can buy books and I make a commission, that kind of stuff. Check out my links. Leave me a comment. Let's chat. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.